Hello, and welcome to the second episode of Seoulful Sips. I'm Alyssa.
I'm Julie.
And this is a continuation of our first episode. We hope you enjoy.
You know, I was thinking before a complete pivot, but certain episode topics, because I mentioned to you that I was watching Ayana's episode on Out of the Pods. And the psychology, like, I wonder what it feels to be in a reality TV show, because certain things are so clear to me when I watch the episodes. Obviously, it's a lot of what the production team wants you to see and the types of stories, and always, like, the crew members, cast members always talk about how you only see a very small fraction of what the story is. Yeah, those things did happen, but there's a lot of context, there's a lot of nuance that you're missing out on. But I have so many thoughts where they talk a lot about trauma bonding, which is a thing, and I completely respect that. But there's also this whole thing within the pods where I remember Zach and what's her
Or Irina.
Irene. No, was it not Zach? Irina. Yeah, it was Irina. I'm just completely mixing up all the names now. Zach and Irina, to me, it's like, and I think you've talked about this before, where empathy for someone's situation doesn't always mean love. And you would think that someone experienced enough in life, and I don't know if I'm being completely condescending, and I completely could be, and people could have completely different perspectives. All disclaimers aside, I'm just thinking, like, you think you know to differentiate that. Even if you are high on emotions, in that situation, you could say, I feel for this person. I feel like this person needs help. But to me, it's another deeper layer to feel love for that person and to find that this is your life mate as a result. Like, to me, this is, like, very different concepts that I would expect someone and many people, if not everybody, to have gone in there with.
I wonder if this is explanation that you have, and that kind of pragmatic way of explaining it is the S in you speaking, because very, very often, and I've seen this in real life and obviously on Love is Blind, the empathy and the love are so easily conflated. So I agree with that point. Cole and Zeneb is another example from Love is Blind. I think the Zach and Irina one is a good example, where I feel like they confused tragedy with depth in their character.
Yes, that's how you articulated it.
Yeah, I knew what you were trying to get to. And I just think that is such... that I could go on for hours about that topic, because I've also kind of seen this in my brothers. And I think it's actually oftentimes, not to overgeneralize, but at least what I have observed, I feel like it's a little bit more of a male dominant trait because of their innate gravitation toward being the protector and this kind of, like, hero complex, where that tragedy oftentimes that they confuse for depth is something that they want to fix. And, like, they want to be the one that, like, heals and solves and solutions for that. And I think that oftentimes gets them stuck in kind of either toxic or unequal relationships.
Right. Oh, that's such a good perspective. And I think similar for women too, it's like, I think I could be the one to help you, like, get through things, like the whole caretaker mentality, right? And it also makes me think, not just people's experiences and their tragedies, but if maybe love was not blind, in, like, maybe, like, when we see in Solo Chio, a lot of men gravitate towards, like, the girl that's not jacked and, like, is all, like,
The innocent
like, one that has no muscle.
the puppy.
Yeah, the puppy, like, super tiny. one that's got zero like sass and is just like
demure, kind of mysterious.
Yeah.
But like has like 반전 too. Like is also like can be very sexy at the same time.
Right,
like
right.
when
Yeah.
because that's really realistic.
Yeah, because that's so realistic. And not a slight on girls in general that are like that, but just to tap into the psychology of men being attracted to someone that they could feel like they could protect, and feeling a bond through that because it fills in their need for being a quote unquote man.
Ego boost.
Yeah, it's an ego booster. There we go.
But then on the flip side of that, there is the whole what you mentioned about like females kind of going for like the damaged bad boy. Like I can be the one that can change him. But I feel like it's a little bit nuanced, right? Because from the female perspective, like if that's the scenario, the female wants to be the one that like softens this guy's heart,
Right.
where it's like the male just wants to be the one that like
It's a shield.
Like, yeah,
that is true. That is true. Different approaches. Yeah.
Not the greatest foundation for
No.
strong relationships. Not realistic.
No.
Yeah.
Not that I'm any better, honestly, but because I've also had my experiences and I could be going through it right now, just not admitting it. I don't know. I don't think I'm not, but who knows? But yeah, it's really interesting to look at the decisions that people make in those reality TV shows to find love and actually not be able to, in my mind, separate the two with like the potential life partner. Like what does partnership mean to you? Not like you're really like, pulling the weight of the relationship versus, oh, this is somebody that needs help.
Yeah.
Right? And you really can't. Like, even if your romantic partner needs help, they should go to get therapy. Like, actually, like, they should go to a professional.
Yeah.
Like, you're by no means a professional. You can sit there and empathize, but you cannot heal that person. You just can't.
You can empathize, but you can't therapize.
That should be a tagline. Put it on all his t-shirts.
Can we make merch?
Yeah. Cuffs, like, because, we totally 100% empathize, don't therapize. Yeah, that's hilarious. I love that. Like, stroke of genius. There was this other thing that I wanted to touch upon with that topic too, was I also I'm trying to think about like what I would have been like in those situations or things that really intrigue me is I get quite impressed with how well people articulate their emotions in the moment. Like I personally find it very hard to be this complete reveal of my personality, but I find it hard to be so eloquent and raw and honest when I'm in the moment. Like I'll just be very not like I'll just be in the process of feeling the emotion rather than going deeper and figuring out what's happened and how that's making me feel. If that makes no sense.
It makes sense. Is that only in romantic relationships for you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because what you just said, I'm like, are the things that I feel like you do so well when we're talking, like just us. Why do you feel like that is something that you struggle with in romantic? Is it because you don't want to be vulnerable?
I'm really struggling to figure out why. I just know that what I've just realized is I feel a sense of respect when I see those people in those reality TV shows express their super vulnerable feelings in such a way that's, I think, is clear-minded when they say, oh, like they're not quite blaming people for how they feel. Like for me, let's say I feel I'm in a situation where I get upset that what would be a scenario? Well, my S side of me is really uncreative. Okay, well, like, let's say I feel like
what if your significant other ended up connecting with someone else? Has expressed to you that he has a connection with someone else, but yours is stronger.
Okay, so in the moment, I would just be like, why is he saying that to me? Like, and that is my way of saying, I'm so upset. I'm extremely upset that this is happening, and the fact that he is sharing that with me, and the fact that he does feel that way, and the fact that human beings can feel that way, and I feel slighted, and I feel like that's me expressing my feeling rather than expressing my thought, if that makes sense. But I feel like if the contestants that we see actually share their thoughts in addition to their feelings, like they'll say, I understand and I totally respect and love the fact that he is feeling like he could be honest with me and that he could have those feelings, and I can understand why he could have those, like they start to break it down a little bit more than me. Not that I can't process my thoughts at that point because I'm just so in my emotions, and that's all I can talk about, and the words that'll come out of my mouth, if you catch me in that moment, won't be my thoughts. It'll just be all of these like fiery feelings. And then obviously because it's on media, that would be then, look at me getting all passionate about this.
I love it.
That would be me then being misunderstood for those being my thoughts, whereas that was just me in a way being articulating my feelings in different words that could sound like thoughts to somebody else.
Would you say that you're pretty reactive when situations like that come up?
Yeah.
Because so when we were going through that simulation, what you said and then what you explained, you were feeling like 15 different feelings, but all you said was, why would you say that?
Yeah.
So is it because you don't want to this is not me therapizing you.
All good.
Is there an aspect of not wanting to show that you're not in control of your emotions that impact that reaction of, I'm just going to react first and then organize my feelings later?
I think I'm very aware that I'm not in control of my feelings control me in a big sense. Like, especially when I said, like, I react, it's my emotions that react. And I think the words of, like, why did you say that to me wasn't to divert the attention or away from me to blame that person necessarily. Like, I'm not there having this like super blame mentality of you're a horrible person. It's not my intention. And obviously it's horrible to say that when that is my question, right? And that's my attack. That's me saying, oh my God, I'm so upset and I can't wrap my head around the situation of how this even came to be. And I'm very overwhelmed right now. But in that moment, I'm not able to take a step back, be a little bit more clear-minded and articulate it in that way. It's like, how is this is expressed in the most, let's say, primitive expression possible, because it's not my mind thinking, it's just like my emotions just blurting out. Yeah.
And it's like, if someone takes that at face value, it could very much turn like combative.
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
Because in your mind, you're thinking, why is this scenario happening?
Right.
Not why did you do this to me?
Correct.
It's why is this happening?
Yeah.
And how do I process and rationalize why it's happening?
Right.
And
right.
Okay.
Yeah, 100%.
So would it change if you were going through the same thing? If you also could relate and say, hey, I also have another strong connection somewhere else, but yours is still would that change things, or would that be too hard to?
I think it would change things because I understand where that sentiment is coming from, and I understand the possibility of it, and I can appreciate that he's mustered up the courage to be transparent with me and at least show me that sense of, I know life could be ugly and I'm like willing to share that with you. Because then I can like actually start to process it and understand and then move forward. Whereas if it's a completely different situation that I can't relate to from a reactionary perspective, I don't know where to start. And there's a lot of inputs. There's a lot of things that are happening that I'm not used to being able to, like, you're somebody that might be able to process a lot of different things at once, and I'm very like one input, one output type of person. But if there's like 100 inputs in that scenario is what I'm feeling, I'm stressed because like I'm a bottleneck for all of that thought processing, and I don't have an output at that moment.
Yeah, especially if you don't have a single point of reference either.
Yeah.
To try to organize those feelings and bring that kind of correlation and comparison to your own experience. I can, wow. Wow. Now it's my turn to be kind of, but it's only in romantic situations for you.
Right, because the emotions will run high.
Yeah. I was just gonna say that. And there's more, there's that aspect of vulnerability in it. I mean, from the time I've known you, I don't, it's not completely a shocker, I would say, because I feel like outside of romantic relationships, I mean, obviously I've never been in a romantic relationship.
Never say never. At the rate that this stuff is going, I mean, we're really getting there.
I just feel like I've always seen you, save for a couple of outliers, so in control of your thoughts and how you express them. And even when you're talking, like your body language and how you, like, I can see how you're processing and gathering and expressing. But that actually makes a lot of sense because you are so accustomed to being in control of your emotions and your thoughts and being able to express them clearly, that when you're put in a situation that makes you more susceptible to vulnerability and emotions are involved, like, that's like throwing your system haywire.
Oh my god.
Is like, that's at least that's my takeaway from that.
You are totally therapizing and I'm loving it. Like, could I give you a certification?
Does that kind of like, that's at least that's like my takeaway from what you just mentioned, because like we were talking about a completely fake scenario, and I could even see like how like difficult that was for you to even try to explain. And it's like,
I've just been through a lot just this past 10
poor Jane's at work, like, doesn't know what's going on.
I have no idea. I'm so angry. Oh man, it reminds me of the times I'll just wake up and like just hit him because he cheated on me on my dream. But anyway, that all that aside, wow, because that's such an intuitive understanding. And okay, so that was so intuitive, and I've never thought in that way, and I think you do such a great job articulating, and thank you, because I've tried so hard to figure out why I'm so level-headed outside of my family. And a lot of people find it surprising that I have this side of me that is very emotional. And I say that because a lot of people see me in a work environment and they're so surprised when my MBTI is an F instead of a T. They're like, I don't think you're, like, I think you have, I'm telling you, you have misdiagnosed yourself.
Yeah.
Like, it's to the extent where people are just like, I rely on you when it comes to me getting super worked up, super stressed. And it's baffling to me that I'm not gentle enough and forgiving enough to the people that are closest to me and I'm more forgiving and gentle and reliant, or easygoing with people outside of my family. I just feel like it's so reversed. Oh, you have so much to say. Okay. There's a lot of things that are going on there. All right. Good. We know where to go next. Got it. Okay, so, but the fact that there's a lot of things that I can manage in terms of the volume of inputs when it comes to outside of my family or my romantic relationship is so true, because it doesn't exceed, all those inputs don't exceed the threshold of what I can handle. Mm-hmm. And that's why I'm able to react a lot more level-headed, versus, to your point, when I'm a lot more emotionally invested into the relationship, or have a more complex understanding of who I'm talking to, and I feel like we're in a situation where I have this expectation of like, they should know, or they do owe me some level of understanding how to talk to me. And I can't fathom how they weren't able to do that for me. And now I have way too many things to process. So I get super stressed out, and then the emotions just keep rising, and I can't think clear anymore. So that for me, that's also why I'm the type that always needs some space to cool down, because I know I'm just going to talk emotions for the first hour or so. And then I just need to calm down, come to my senses, figure out why I was feeling that way, and then talk about it. I could never just be like, okay, this is what I'm feeling at any point.
Are you the type of person that replays a scenario? I kind of know the answer to this. Are you the type of person that replays a scenario in your head and think back of how you would react after you've had processing time? Or are you the type of person that will process and then try to move forward and figure out what the next step or solution is?
What do you think my answer is?
That's kind of the leading question. It's in every business 101 book, it's what not to do when asking questions and trying to get right answers.
Oh my god. Yeah, I totally know what you mean. What I try to do is I have steps.
Of course you have steps. I had expected nothing less. I wouldn't be surprised if you had a whole framework around it.
Yeah, I probably do. And you hear it now. So my first is that I know I'll be feeling all of the emotions. And I'm very well aware through experiencing my life as me that I'm not going to be my best, most proudest self in that situation, in that phase 1. Therefore, I ask of the counterpart to give me time, and I allow myself to feel everything in that phase. 1, because I probably can't help it, but number 2, I don't want anything to linger afterwards. So even if I feel like that emotion will never go away because I feel so passionately about it, I will still let myself do it, because I've learned that it does eventually subside. Whether I end up distracting myself, or whether I end up kind of rationalizing and kind of seeing the other side a little bit more as I cool down, it does come to a little bit of a close. So I wait for my phase 1 to fizzle out, and then I move on to, okay, why was I feeling, what were the triggers? And that's when I recount everything that's happened, perhaps not to a progression of this happened, then that happened, then that happened. It was I felt this, I felt that, then I felt that, and now this is what I feel. It's more, my memory is more feeling based. So it's what did I feel, and what was the thing that happened that made me feel that way? And then I figure out, okay, so what does that mean in terms of my needs perspective that I felt wasn't addressed? And then while that's going, I'm starting to realize the counterpart's experience in that moment too. and how sudden things could have looked when I reacted certain ways explosively, right? And then being very like surprised at what's coming back to them when that wasn't their intention. Then that third phase is putting it all together, right? Okay, I could see why this person got so super surprised. I can see what context they were missing out. I can see what I was feeling in between there that I wasn't sharing enough of. And I'm learning through myself too that there are things that I need. And so I owe them an apology, and I owe them an explanation of like the things that I've just experienced. And then we can work through, okay, like what is it that we could try next time in order for this situation to be avoided.
Wow.
Yeah, that's my framework.
I could like visualize the workflow as you were going through, like the automated, like what trigger, what's the next step in the workflow, where it branches out. Like I can literally. Okay, I have questions and thoughts before I lose my train of thought on what you mentioned a little bit earlier. So rewinding to when you were talking about people being surprised that what did you say? Where you're like, you're not as in control of your emotions? Is that what you said?
Something
or like that. People are like surprised that you actually, like have trouble processing your emotions or whatever.
Yeah.
And then B, feeling like it's so backwards that you have more leniency and compassion with outsiders versus people that are close to you. So on the first point, I think the J in you allows you to outwardly express this sense of control, and you have things together, and the pragmatic S in you obviously also is something that shines through a lot in your personality. But I do feel like the I and the F is what makes it feel like what's going on inside your head can be chaotic at times. And I go through that as well. And I think I read that in one of the MBTI theories about like how IFJs, exclusive of whether you're an N or an S, do tend to have more chaotic thoughts inwardly than they express outwardly, because there's just so much kind of inner turmoil going on, but the J in them doesn't allow them to show the chaos. Oh. So when you were saying that, and you were saying that people are confused, like it makes sense to me why that would be a thing. Yeah. It sucks. Because then it's like when you try to tell people that, they're like, well, no, but you don't. And you're like, but no, but you don't understand. Like, this is what I'm telling you. And then to your point that I thought was interesting when you were like, well, I find it so easy to be compassionate and lenient with outsiders versus my own family. And I feel like you almost said that with this sense of surprise, as if it was like, cause I think in your own word, you actually said it was so backwards. Yeah. But when you actually think about it, that makes a lot of sense. When you're thinking about people that you don't know, there's no context with that person. Right. So if they wrong you, there's no impact there, because you don't have a history, you don't have context with them, so you don't hold them to the standard that you would your family member or your friend, where it's like, we've been through this together, we've had history together, I would do this for you, why wouldn't you do the same for me? So I think that makes that really aligns really well. Like, I'd almost be worried if it was the other way around, if you didn't hold your family and friends to a higher standard and you were, less forgiving of strangers. I would almost think that would be like, I'm sure that opposite trait would probably be in like narcissism. Oh, like, okay. You know what I mean? So good to know. We've identified that you're not a narcissist. That one off. But yeah, do you feel like you look at that as a backwards thing because you feel like, because you know your friends and family, you should be more compassionate and nurturing to them, so there's a sense of guilt when you hold them to a higher standard? Like, is that where that kind of backwards thinking feels to you?
I think it is because my family's also told me, like, why are you so not good to your family? Like, your attitude, right? versus like other people, you're so nice to them. Like you should be doing good to your family, not other people. And my sister has always been somebody that does put her family in priority and shares that through her actions too. And she could care less also through her actions of people outside her family. Not that she hates everyone, but like as an INFJ, you're very private, right? And so she's somebody that would like there's like some level of comparison there, right? As me being more, you know, explosive to my family, and my sister being this very caring person. She also expresses her love in different ways, but yeah, I think there was some of that, and just the fundamental understanding that family's first, and that I'm not doing, like we talked about this whole concept of failure. Like during my time with them, I haven't always been, sorry, coffee machine. I have not always been so optimal in expressing my love for them as perhaps like I guess I should have, right? And like what does that all mean anyway anymore, right? But that's where that shame comes from.
It's interesting because my middle brother and I have a very similar dynamic. He's very much like you, where he's an E, but also an SFJ.
Okay, right.
I think there's this aspect of being this developer and helper and like expressing that very outwardly, whereas myself, similar to your sister, as an INFJ, we express that very inwardly. So like within the family, like that's how we express our love. So like I'll give you an example. When it's the fall, you'll see the first thing you'll do is you'll see my brother raking leaves for like our old lady neighbor across the street. And like my mind automatically goes to, well, why wouldn't you help dad first?
Sounds like you're my sister.
Yeah, that's why it reminds me of it. And not that either one are wrong, but in my mind, it's like, well, why wouldn't you think of family first?
Right.
And in his mind, he's like, well, she's all by herself, and if she needs the help and I can do it, why wouldn't I just do it? I'm like, and then I go, well, but it's the principle of it, like, and it just
totally
gets
see it.
into this whole thing. But I just think at the end of the day, and I'm so thankful that we're a generation that can learn that neither one is right or wrong, or I guess neither one is wrong, and we can kind of rationalize through like those emotions, and just because I would rather help dad first does not mean that I don't care about the world, and just because he wants to help, you know, old lady across the street first does not mean that he doesn't care about dad. It's just we just express things very differently, and we perceive things very differently. I don't really know if I had a point.
No, but I love that you shared that, because I mean, I know my sister's also willing to be a guest on our thing, but she's very family oriented like that, like expressing to family first. And we've also, and I'm sure we could share too when she's on and talk about that in more depth, because I'm sure you'll be able to relate to her on so many levels, is it took her a long time to even accept the fact that that standard doesn't mean that that's the only standard. And we had fought a lot about that too, right? As you probably are not surprised, because it's a values system. And it's really hard to wrap your mind, even me looking at this like objectively, it's hard to wrap your mind around the fact that you're helping someone else out in such a great celebratory day when you could be using the same energy to show that to your family, but still that same person values family more than they value that person. It's like very difficult, right? And also in my family, we talk about how my sister says no wrong. Like it makes so much sense. And she's somebody that has been showing her values and has been walking them. Whereas for me, I don't express it in the same way. And perhaps, you know what? My values might be different. And I think they are. And that's not to say I don't value family. Perhaps I just value myself first. And that just means something completely different. And for a personality like my sister, that's hard to fathom.
Yeah.
Like, her as herself doesn't really exist. I don't really want, we're kind of speaking, we're definitely speaking for her right now, and we could definitely ask her again. But for her, family is so centric to who she is and why she lives. But for me, that's not the case. And it's really hard for us as sisters to be in the family together. Yeah.
Can we do like a sibling special and get my brother and your sister on in the same? Because you and my brother, very similar. Me and your sister, very similar.
Could we really do that?
Yeah, we should. We should do a sibling special. Soulful Sips sibling special.
Wow. Soulful Sips sibling special.
As we both try to work through our lisps that we didn't know we had. Yeah, I mean, damn. Well, I think the mentality that your sister has, and you know, just like I also have, is a very much traditional, kind of foundational, like Asian culture, like mentality of like you are an extension of your family. They are the ones that raised you. Sacrifice equals love. Therefore, like your duty now is to take all of that and be able to give back. Like I think that is, I mean, speaking for myself, that's kind of like the dutiful mindset that comes about, and any deviation from that just feels like so daunting. And because we're not really taught in Asian culture to have like an individualist mindset. Like we're taught very much the opposite. So what you have expressed about kind of the comparisons and the differences that you've had with your sister is very much something that I know my brother has gone through, and that we've talked in depth about. And he's kind of gotten to a point where he's kind of made peace with it, and we've kind of learned to be able to move forward with it. But I know it's something that he had struggled with as a child as well.
Oh, interesting. I'm also so interested to learn his experiences too, because like you're completely right in that's an Asian, like that what you and my sister have as a value system is what our culture does teach us. And as a result, it's what our parents really like about my sister, and like, you know, that's that value system, because she is that prime example of who you want to be as the Asian child. And it's, to me, when I look at it, it is the word stifling the same as sumakyo. It's so stifling that my sister is just following that to a T, like this oh my god, traditional traditional, like I keep thinking in Korean, but this very traditional perfect child, and that she doesn't really see any other way. But at the same time, I can't fault her for it, because I can totally respect and see that perspective. But I cannot get myself to live that way, period. And I felt like I've grown up feeling ashamed that I don't feel that way, but still not being able to help but live the way and think and act the way that I have. I think my sister would be quite sad to hear this part of it. She might like start crying. But and you know what? I don't think too deeply about it. Obviously, as ISFJA. But now, since we're talking about it, it's something that I felt like, she does have it right, but I can't help myself, and like, I don't think I'm in the complete wrong either. But I don't really know how to justify it. But And I just simply do feel ashamed about it.
Yeah. I mean, I think just at least speaking from my own experiences, and I'm willing to bet your sister has probably felt similar just based off of our conversations that we had and the fact that we're very similar personalities. But I have thought about it, and yeah, definitely have sympathized with my brother for growing up in that environment, because it wasn't a value system or in a culture that was conducive to his personality. And we would always say he has the best heart and the warmest heart and the greatest intentions, but it never, like, there were just times that it didn't align the way that it felt like it should have, in kind of that traditional, like, family value environment that we had. Again, like, I'm sure he kind of like is whatever about it now, and that we're adults, but there are moments where I've thought back to our childhood, and I've felt very like 짠해 for him, because it's just like, it must have been very difficult to grow up as a middle child in between these two very cookie cutter traditional, do well in academics, put family first, and him being the smack dab middle of that. It was completely opposite. And it wasn't like he was a bad person, but I think it must have elicited a sense of like moral conflict, because he didn't fit into that mold, and his surrounding siblings did, whether they liked it or not.
So your oldest brother is similar.
Yeah. I mean, oldest brother is like, can do no wrong, angel child, like, just, and I can't even like dislike him for it, because it's like, he really is, you know.
Does he is he happy doing that? Like, I'm just so curious.
I think so. He has always just kind of been the reliable one, and kind of took on the role of like the third parent. Like, as soon as he was old enough to like do part-time jobs and stuff, like, he was basically taking care of me and my middle brother. So that was just his role, you know. And then so I think that he has always maintained that, although I think he's had a harder time with it than he often lets on. Yeah.
Wow. The only reason I say I'm so curious is that I can't really relate. Like, I can't. If I were to think that I live in that cookie cutter value system, then I feel like I just feel so trapped and claustrophobic in it. But if to even think about the fact that you could exist as somebody that does just naturally gravitate towards the type of value system that is very, conducive in an Asian culture, is beyond my wildest imagination, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole nother topic.
We should definitely do this, like, siblings. Soulful Sips sibling special.
Yeah. I think my brother was a psychology major. So he can really therapize.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, so he's got some good thoughts.
Oh,
you know.
wow.
I probably wouldn't you wouldn't catch me admitting that to his face, but we've had some pretty good talks. We've talked about doing a podcast before together too.
Oh.
But he's more P than J,
Okay,
and that clashes with.
Okay. Got it. It's okay. He can pulse in and out then.
Yeah.
And if he hopefully listens to any of our episodes, he could give us any thoughts.
Yeah.
Give us maybe. I would love to learn concepts if we are able to better articulate ourselves, and maybe we're just like skirting around a certain concept that really does exist.
Yeah.
That would be great. After this, I'm gonna be texting my sister. Yeah. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm curious about what the dynamic will be between you and my sister, and I'm also so curious if you'll get more out of her than I've ever gotten from her, or if that just simply is, I don't know what it is. Like, not that you have to,
Yeah.
but it's like, I wonder what it looks like to have two INFJs in the room.
Yeah.
And talking to each other and having a similar value system and then bonding over that too. I'm so curious.
Yeah. Especially because we're both the youngest in the family, but kind of from what you've told me, like some kind of assume like the stereotypical like oldest daughter
Yes.
role in our family of like always feeling like like we carry the family on our shoulders kind of
Yes.
thing. So I'd be very curious to hear
Yeah.
her perspective on that.
I love that you articulated it that way because my sister always says that she raised herself. Because because I was the oldest, I did get the attention and like, okay, where did she go to school, and like, what does this mean, what does that mean, and doing all the firsts for the parents. But when it comes to being independent and being able to, you know, learn for yourself and have this very, I guess, traditional ideal
Yeah.
personality, like that's where she comes in.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm like the troublemaker. Although, yeah, not to say, that's just really highlighting some of the more not so positive stuff. But yeah, that has tended to be the dynamic. And then oftentimes when we would see friends together, people would say that she feels like the older sister. You've probably heard this. Yeah, there you go.
How far apart are you guys?
2.
Okay, my brother and I are technically 3 years apart, but he's only 2 grade levels older than me. So very similar in terms of age gap as well.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that is very similar.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I want to revisit something that you said earlier because I don't want to lose that thought track, whatever I'm trying to say. Yeah, when you were talking about your phases of processing your emotions, when you're dealing with like a conflict in a romantic setting, when you're going through those phases, as you so eloquently and perfectly articulated, are you like consciously aware when you're moving through each phase? Like when you've gotten past phase 1, are you like, okay, now I'm entering phase 2? Like, do you think about that, or is that just like naturally so ingrained in how you process life that it just comes?
It is what I want to say, and very tempted to say, currently quite confident in saying is, yes, I'm very aware of the phases. But admittedly, it has been a while since I've gone through something like that. But in situations where I do feel a high level of emotion, I do ask for my own space because, and I haven't always been like this. You know what I want to say is, it's trained. I haven't always been like this. I have always like just spoken my emotions, and then I've gotten the feedback that no, like this is not how you express yourself. This is like the wrong stuff. It's hurtful, right? And so then I try to evaluate like why I've been like that and what I need to do and what kinds of strategies there are to implement to make a healthier choice in that moment. So then I understand myself as somebody that does need the time, and I understand myself as someone that has been able to show a level of clarity and maturity after the fact. So I rely on that memory to encourage myself to like take a moment, go through the phases, acknowledge the phases, and know that like I will like have this teeny tiny belief while I'm so mad that like I'll make it through and we'll get there and I'll have a level of clarity eventually.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Because I feel like maybe that's something that I need to practice more based off of the little kind of romantic experience that I've had, is like I feel like when I process things, it's like that SpongeBob episode where like something goes haywire in his brain and like everything's on fire and he's like running around trying to find the right files and like everything is just like goes to shit. Like I feel like that's what happens to me when I lose control of my emotions and let them take over. So for me, I think that kind of contributes to why I can come off very aloof and like stoic. And then if I do get to that very emotional side, I'll just kind of default to self-isolation until I can figure it out. But hearing you speak, like if I were on the other end of it, of knowing that I said something that upset you, and you being like, I need to take space because this is how I'm going to process so I don't say something hurtful, I feel like the anxiety in me and the tendency to like catastrophize everything would start to take over. And like I would just want to be like, but can you just tell me now, like where you're at?
I have 2 points on what you've just shared. First is I'm a simpleton. I don't know if that's the right word. It definitely probably isn't. When it comes to thinking, right? I'm quite a linear thinker, so it works for me to have phase 1, 2, and 3, even if it comes to my emotions, and to know that that's the track that I'm on. But if I were to be somebody, and I am not, so I can't exactly suggest an alternative that does stuff or thinks of things simultaneously all the time, and it's quite complicated and never a quiet moment in my mind, then I don't know that the phase approach is actually going to help.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's like my mind doesn't work linearly. Like perhaps it's like a ton of loops, like 10 different loops all at once, combined in like a 3D model. Versus mine's just like a straight line, 2D, 1D if it's 1D, right? A straight line. Is where my mind works, and that's how I've been able to go through the phases. And so it's hard for me to then suggest to you what kinds of dimensions and loops to think about as you go through all the emotions. And the second point is, as the 상대방, the whoever I'm talking to, sure. My husband. Yes, thank you. Oh, English, so difficult.
I'm writing in Korean, and I like. And I also because there's certain words that just make more sense in the context. So yes,
this has been me. This is why it's anyway. Okay, so husband is somebody that's like, I need an answer. Like we need to talk right now. Like we need to figure this out here and on the spot. And I know he's not the only one that is like that, and he has his own reasons, whether it's anxiety or induced, or whether it's more impulse induced, or whether it's, I don't know, like he's able to handle the complexity of the problem better than I. Whatever his reason is, he is somebody that needs the answer now or wants to talk it out in that moment. However, we have tried the method, and he has, through my very stubborn insistence, been generous enough to let me take my space, and we have come back to conversations, and through that and the outcomes of those, when we do try that approach, he has learned that it does work for the better for us. So perhaps if it was more anxiety induced, it formulates in his mind of where that came, like what the meaning of the pause means. And it does help for him, and we've talked about this, for me to say, hold up, we need a moment, because not because I don't care about you and I don't want to be with you right now, but because I want to be with you in a much more healthy state. And that's what the meaning of this pause means for me and for us, rather than I'm taking myself away from you because I can't take you anymore. Yeah.
You answered my question without me having to ask it, because me role playing here, being on the other side, and trying to empathize with people that might have either like abandonment issues or that kind of that instant feeling of like, oh my gosh, like they're gonna leave, like how do you pre-communicate with them like that? That's not the case. Like I'm doing this so that we can come back together stronger, and I feel like you just communicated that so well.
See, we're already in a relationship, you and me. We've gone through the motions.
Yeah, now we know communication styles. Next episode, we're going to talk about attachment styles and figure out how we're going to navigate through them.
We definitely are. We've just been siblings and we've been romantic partners. Like, what's next? Let's go. Let's do it.
This is going to turn into like a relationship simulation podcast of like, tell us what type of relationship you're having issues with, and we'll put ourselves in those roles.
Oh my gosh, that would be so fun.
That actually would be really funny.
Let's do it.
To see how we would react differently.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I would love to roleplay that. Oh, good stuff. Anywho.
That was some great release of the random thoughts that I had yesterday. So thanks for bringing up the mics and entertaining me.
Honestly, yeah, it's great to get so deep when you don't plan for it.
Yeah,
exactly. It's really fun, right?
Yeah.
And like, who would have known we've gone so many directions and touched on a lot of topics, but hit on a lot of core essences of it.
Yeah.
And having been quite introspective and attempted understanding of each other.
I mean, I think we really captured kind of the core of what we want this podcast to be, right? Like just these raw thoughts coming out on like a random cloudy day as you're kind of catching up with a friend, and taking away different perspectives of how we've gone through our lives. Thanks for entertaining me today.
Of course. And shall we wrap with a cheers?
Yes.
Okay, ready? 오늘도 수고했어.
And that's a wrap on our first free flow conversation. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'll come back with our next episode. 오늘도 수고했어.